Why would anybody create a Nazi puppet?
They're little, they're fast. Anne Frank was hiding in her attic. Public could find her.
After several months of long and excruciating waiting, the next installment in the Puppet Master franchise is finally here. If you're watching this, then there's a good chance that you're probably familiar with Puppet Master. It's a series that I was always aware existed, but didn't actually get to watching it till about a year ago when I purchased the 9 movie pack. It was one of the best impulsive buys I ever made because I loved every second of it. Okay, so maybe not every second of it, but the first 3 films were all pretty enjoyable B-movies. They had a certain charm to them that made them unlike any other horror series of the time. It's fairly common knowledge that the series has deteriorated over time as far as quality, but The Littlest Reich is a Puppet Master film I've been actively anticipating. There were many reasons that I was excited for this new movie, but the 2 main reasons were: 1, this was the first not to be made by Full Moon Entertainment, and 2, this would be written by S. Craig Zahler, the mind behind both Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99, which are both great films that I really enjoyed. So now that this film has finally been released, did it live up to my hype? Not really. This is a movie that I am very mixed on because there's both things that I really liked about it, but I also felt there was a lot of wasted opportunities or things that probably could have been handled better. The film follows Edgar, a recently divorced man who's employed at a comic shop. He discovers a genuine Blade doll that once belonged to the famous Andre Toulon, who in this adaptation of it is now a Nazi. Edgar, his girlfriend, and his boss go to a convention made in remembrance of the famed Toulon murders of 1989. Eventually, the dolls start to go missing, and bloody chaos ensues. I think my main problem with this film is it's a case of too much hype leading to being let down. I knew it was straight to video, so I really shouldn't expect too much from it, but there's been quite a few direct-to-video films over the years that I have loved. And once again, that's not to say that there aren't things in this film that I did in fact enjoy. I think the thing that everyone who is praising this film is talking about is just how insane the kills are. Not all horror fans are sadistic freaks, but I think a lot of us enjoy a well-executed slasher kill, and this movie does not hold back. The deaths in this film get so crazy, they start to reach like trauma levels of insanity. There's not just blood, but guts flying everywhere. This is probably the most blood and gore I've seen in a film since Dead Alive. Being a straight-to-video film, it never quite reaches those levels, but it gets somewhat close. I also liked a lot of characters in this film. There wasn't a lot to them, but they were much more memorable than the characters of previous Puppet Master films, besides Toulon, of course, who was the most memorable part of any Puppet Master movie. Though a lot of characters' development kind of fell flat by the end, but the attempts made to develop them in the first place are at least clear to see. You get to meet Edgar's parents towards the beginning, and the somewhat slow start to the film really works in its favor. I also like the idea of the main character working in a comic shop, but that may just be because I loved seeing the Goon posters in the background. It was also nice to see Barbara Crampton get a big role again. I know she's been doing quite a few films lately, but I'm just familiar with her from her Stuart Gordon movies. Seeing as she was playing a cop, I was afraid she was gonna die instantly, but they proved me wrong, thank God. The music of this film was also excellent. It was done by Fabio Frizzi, I believe, who scored some of Fulci's movies, and I think I can confidently say that the music was my favorite part of this film. Andre Toulon is also a Nazi this time around, an idea I didn't think I'd be that into, but it's pulled off pretty well here. I really wish he had a much bigger role in the film, because he's really only shown in the opening, that is, alive at least. Of course he comes back as a zombie towards the end, which is also kind of an interesting new take on the character. But while I admired all of those things, the tone of this movie was probably its biggest flaw. The tone felt confusing because despite being a mostly goofy killer puppet film, there were times that it seemed to take itself pretty seriously, which acted as a detriment to the overall film. Half the time when a kill happened, I did not know what I was supposed to feel. Most of the time it was extremely goofy, like a guy's head gets cut off, falls into a toilet, and he pisses on it. But other times it was just way too grim, like when a woman finds her girlfriend's throat slit in the bathtub, or the scene with a dead mother and a kid standing beside her. But then for some reason I found myself laughing when the same kid is murdered and his severed hands are still holding on to Cuddly Bear's shirt. It's things like that where I'm just watching all of these people be murdered by puppets, but after a while you don't know how much of it is meant to be funny and how much isn't. There was a joke towards the end that I laughed at though, when the boy questions why so many innocent people had to die, though to be honest, that's kind of a topic that would work better in a more serious horror film as opposed to Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich. There were plenty of jokes that felt clever, like I should have laughed, but the execution fell flat and I mostly blame directing for that. There's a scene where Edgar's boss enters the building with Edgar behind him, and he just like drops all of his bags as the door closes on him and he's trying to pick them back up. And that's something that in any movie could have been pretty funny, but it was shot from a distance and just came off more awkward than funny, which is how a lot of jokes turned out in this film. One of the things I kept seeing in reviews was how offensive it was, and I started to get really curious as to what they meant by that. That was another thing that was a bit of a letdown for me, because while there are a few jokes that I guess could be considered offensive, there's very few of them. And of course you have the whole aspect where the puppets are Nazis that commit hate crimes by killing minorities, but I mean, they are Nazis. Like, I'm bi, but I cannot care less if a gay person is killed by a Nazi puppet in a horror movie. That's just the type of behavior I'd expect from a killer Nazi puppet. And besides, it's a horror movie. People are expected to die no matter what groups they belong to. Now, there actually are a few things that I probably would have changed that I think would have made the film much better. And I hate saying that because I honestly have no film experience and I feel like an asshole saying that I could have done something better than someone. But looking at the overall finished product, what I would have changed is I would have made everyone staying in the hotel except the main character just complete assholes. And they would each showcase this in some way during the tour of Toulon's mansion. I would also probably leave out the hate crime aspect. That's actually a part of the film I did kind of like. But if you make all of these minority groups into assholes you want to be killed, it might give off the wrong idea. This is also a film that would have benefited from being longer. I know it's a Puppet Master movie though, so I shouldn't really expect more than an hour and a half, but an extra 30 minutes would either give us more time to focus on the puppets or more time to develop characters. You know, while you're at it, just give me a 3-hour Puppet Master movie. I'd pay to see that. Overall, I was not a huge fan of this film. I think it was mostly a disappointment, but there's still quite a few elements that I did enjoy. The film does end with a lot of unanswered questions, but the to be continued suggests that there's more to come, and I'd be down for that. There's a lot that could be improved, but until then I'd say that this movie is at least worth a watch. Just go in with low expectations and you might enjoy it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye.